Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Dear Self Live. My name is Cindy Teevens, author of Alchemy, How to Feel Good No Matter What, and The Happiness Lie. On this program, we give real live answers to burning questions that people have, and I periodically demonstrate a 2-minute technique to inner peace. We look together at the differences between you, thought, and feeling, and show you how to break free from painful attachments and how to question who you are via comparing thought with truth, because they're not one and the same. We have some questions ahead of time, so we will be getting to those written ones after we address any live ones. And I see that we have some guests coming onward. Welcome. Okay, so Dear Self is the spiritual version of Dear Abby. You are seeking answers to maybe why you feel, act, and react the way you do. Or maybe you're even questioning who you are. Perhaps you've noticed that no matter how hard you try, you can't stop thoughts. And you're not impressed with many of them. You could be delusioned with the temporary material world, and you might be asking, is this really all there is to life? I've asked all those questions and more, and you can ask them here. So feel free, because when the student is ready, the teacher appears to appear. And no matter where the answers come from, whether your mentor, a book, a friend, your enemy, a dog, or a tree, ultimately they come from within, from yourself. So ask away, because the truth is available here and now. And if we don't ask, we won't find out. So the questions are critical and important. And sometimes the answers come even as you speak. And sometimes the answer you get from the so-called outside is different from the answer you get on the inside. So it doesn't matter if you think you're getting them from a leader, from a spiritual guide, or what, or just your best friend. Your answers come from within, because only you can say, yes, that's true. Mm-hmm. So let's dive in and see if we have anybody live who has any questions. We may be having some technical difficulties because I hear and see some people flickering in and flickering out. So one of the topics that I wanted to address today is personal love. It's one of my favorite topics because personal love, or what I thought was personal love, led me to discover the impersonal love, which is far greater. And most people think that that's the best it can get in life, when you get into a relationship that's loving with someone who's maybe your soulmate, or whatever description that you look for. And the thing is that if you're happy with that degree of love, you'll never know the greater love. And so it's not that you shouldn't be in a relationship, but thinking that that's the best as it gets can limit you, and you'll never know anymore. And thinking that the love that you're experiencing comes from the other person is where the error is made. There is no love from another person. The love that you feel is felt right here, right now, in your own body, mind. And to recognize that is to start to stop limiting it. And everybody knows this is true, because you have laid beside somebody and felt happy and at peace, and you've laid beside somebody and felt miserable and disconnected. So it doesn't have anything to do with the person. To discover truth, we have to look past our beliefs or question them, and that's one way to look past them. And that's, again, the power of questions. We need to question everything we think we know, to not accept anything and go deeper and deeper and deeper. Because concepts just block you, you know. And they may not look like concepts. You might have heard of the story of the traveler who saw a rope and thought it was a snake. And so he never took a certain path until somebody else came along and said, no, 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 that's not a snake. That's a rope. And then he took a closer look and he questioned what he thought he knew, and he saw, okay, it's a rope. It's a rope. And only then could his travels take a shortcut. So question everything you think is obvious, even, because that's the most insidious. What you think is obvious is perhaps taken for granted and never questioned. And so speaking with other people, sometimes you can have the opportunity to have things questioned that you aren't even aware that you're taking for granted. Let's see again. I don't know if we're actually having a sound problem. Can someone give me confirmation that they can hear me?
Yep.
Thumbs up. Thank you. Right on. Okay. Can someone come on and say hello so I have confirmation of sound on this end?
Hi, it's Pamela here.
Yeah, see, I don't hear you. One momento.
Can you hear me, Cindy?
Maybe let's try this. And then one other thing.
Cindy? Cindy?
I can hear you, LV.
I got you now.
Okay, I can hear you, Pamela, and I can hear Cindy.
This feels better. Thank you very much.
Okay,
All
I do
right.
have one question before you start. Is Hangout the same as Google Plus thing?
Well, Google Plus is the program behind Hangouts, so you need to have a Google Plus account to participate, and then you need to join the Hangout link that I sent out.
Oh, I didn't join any links. It just said download. Okay.
Yeah, it did it automatically for you. Some things
Okay.
work right.
Okay, good,
Technology.
good.
Very good. Very good.
Okay, I'm going back to mute now.
All right. Thank you. So now that I can hear you, does anybody have any questions?
Well, I did have some trouble in the beginning because when I first came on, I heard one sentence and then you were dead after that. So then I went off and came back on, and then I could hear you.
Okay, that's
So
good to know.
I missed a lot of the intro.
That's okay. That's good to know, because now I can check later. I can check with the recording. Just to let you know, this is being recorded. It does go automatically on YouTube. So if anybody doesn't want to be seen or heard, then just mute yourself or hide your camera. So yeah, I can go and check and make sure. I don't know whether the intro was there or not. So I'll just do a little mini repeat of the intro of what Dear Self is about. So Dear Self is the spiritual version of Dear Abby. It's for people who are seeking answers as to why they feel, act, and react the way they do. And they may even be questioning who they are. You may have noticed that no matter how hard you try, you can't stop thoughts. And you're not impressed with many of them. You may be disillusioned with the temporary material world, and you might be asking, is this all there is to life? You can ask these questions and more here. These are all questions that I used to ask, and I found nobody to ask them. So I went for years initially wondering, but then I just sort of went on with life, put everything aside like most people do, go about their business, you know, get married, have kids, have a career, and yada yada, although I didn't really do any of that either. But but the questions never went away. You know, they always sort of hovered around or nagged, and it wasn't until I actually actively started asking them that I actually started getting answers. And so the asking is important, and that's why I formed this group and this live opportunity for people to ask questions. How was that for an intro?
Good.
Okay. So one of the questions that we had written was, is this world real, or is all of this a dream? Is this world real, or is all of this a dream? So one has to ask, what are we talking about when we say this world? And Ramana Maharshi explained this very clearly and succinctly. He said that the world seen as the world, or other and separate from you, there's you and the world, So the world seen as the world is false. The world seen as self is true, is real. And so the answer is it is real or unreal depending on your perspective. What most people are doing is they're going around living in this life in their head. Their whole world is in their head, and nobody else has access to their head. Or most people anyway don't have access to their head. And so they're living separate lives. So we have one world, one earth, but billions of different worlds within it. It's no wonder we clash, you know. So there's the aspect, that's a more superficial aspect, that, you know, living in a story in your head is a dream. That's on one level. But on a deeper level, there's even the story of yourself, your very self, who you are, who you think you are. And most people have never heard this question in their lives. The first time I heard it, it floored me because I couldn't answer it. I would think, okay, well, I guess I'm the body. And then I would look at the body and go, no. You know, I have a picture of myself as an infant and, you know, my mother's arms. And that body is nothing like this body, you know. And that body's been changing. This body's been changing the whole life. And I've seen it change. So having seen it change, I know very well I'm not it. In order to notice change or to witness or see change, there has to be the unchanging, that which does not change. And so then I looked, well, okay, the personality or this idea of me that is this, I can't even point to because it doesn't really have any existence. And because all that is a thought. A personality, who am I? I don't know. For the first time, I really realized, I don't know. I'm not the body, I'm not a thought, I'm not a feeling. All these things come and go and change in my presence. So this question would not let me go. I became obsessed with it. How could I have lived 40 some odd years of my life and not know who I am? Because I am not a sister. I am not a daughter. I am not a best friend. I am none of those roles. Those are constantly changing. So in order to know the truth, we have to get rid of the false. Just like in order to know that the rope is a rope, we have to get rid of the idea that it's a snake. How do we get rid of the idea it's a snake? We question the idea. We look closely. And most people never do this in their lives. They go about thinking without directly knowing who and what they are. And there's a difference between thinking something and knowing something. Like I could tell you that the stove is hot. And you could have the thought in your head, the stove is hot. But do you know that the stove is hot? You don't know. How do you know the stove is hot? You have to touch it. This is very direct. It's so direct and so simple and so obvious, everybody misses it. Because why? Because they're in the head thinking about something. The answer must be up here. We are so used to living in the head and looking to the head for answers. And if you can't get it as an answer in the head, well, you don't believe it. But the problem with the head answer is that it divides and labels and makes borders and barriers and boundaries where there are none. It's sort of like if you went to a deserted island and you marked off your home, your territory with, rope or something, and you said, "This is mine." Have you really defined what's yours? Or have you defined what's not yours? And which is greater? So have you really gained? So when we define ourselves as a person, as some nebulous entity that we can't even really find if we look for it, and then we define other people in the same way, and then we define that our love comes from them, and then we become needy, we need something from them. Conventional love is not love, it's need, it's trade. And then when we don't get what we want, we get unhappy. And we call that love. You be for me what I need, and I'll be for you what you need, and don't rock the boat and everything will be okay. But life rocks the boat. The waves happen. Things fall apart. And that's a good thing. Because if you never knew better and you always thought that this was as good as it gets, you'd never know your true capacity for love, which I discovered is cosmic, is explosive, is beyond anything imaginable. And why doesn't everybody know this? Because they're happy with conventional love, or chasing conventional love anyway. And chasing anything is not happy. It's stressful. It's work, it's effort. The discovery that love is here and now, always, is so blissful. So yeah, we stopped asking questions. When we were kids, we were asking all these questions, right? We were experimenting with the body to see what it could do and all the feelings and sensations. And I'm not sure, but I think it might have been about the time that you discovered something called an orgasm that you quit looking, you quit exploring the capabilities of this body-mind. But it's capable of so much more love, joy, and bliss and peace than you have lived or imagined. And I hope this stirs curiosity again. Because it's only through curiosity that you will explore, that you will question. Never stop exploring, never stop questioning. And it's not so that you can know anything. Because what you'll find is the more you question, the less you know. And that's true wisdom. Because when you know something, you've drawn a border, a boundary, a barrier, and you've limited it. When this experience is unlimited. So the idea that, is the world real or is it all a dream? We hear this a lot in New Age movements. Oh, it's just a dream, don't worry about it. If your perspective is from one of separation, you have this as thought knowledge, not as actual knowledge. Any parrot can say it's all a dream. But do they know it? Some people think that by saying this, you don't need to worry about the world, so don't take care of it and let it all go to hell. You might want to question that one too. Any perspective you take is wrong. There is a knowing that does not require a perspective because it doesn't separate anything. I'm going to go back to the questions and see. Alex, did that answer your question, or do you have a question? Give him a moment to reply. If anybody wants to join us, they can go to alchemylovejoy.com and click on the webinar to see the webinar and see the chat box that I'm checking out right now, where you can type in questions. And I think Alex might be busy and gone. So I'm going to open the floor to our live guests. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Cindy,
Yes.
you said something earlier about soulmate, and I didn't quite get it. Can you repeat what you said, or do you remember what you said?
Yes, I just made reference to the term. I didn't speak too much about it. I spoke about personal love and how limited it is, and how when we're pursuing personal love because we think it's the greatest thing, then we actually miss the greatest thing. Because when you pursue the personal, you miss the universal. And universal love is far more joyful, blissful, ecstatic, completely fulfilling. There's nothing left empty, ever. And this is not the case with personal love. And so when people think that the most joy there is in life is finding that soulmate, and that is a pittance compared to your potential.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Hi, Energizer. I got a message here that says, I have a job interview in 2 days and I become terrified when I have interviews, gripped with fear. Okay. So it's never the thing, the person, or event that hurts us or bothers us. Never. So the interview is not what's causing your distress. You're not even having the interview now, so obviously it's not the interview that's causing your distress. So what hurts us is our thoughts about a thing, a person, or an event. And we usually miss that. And the thoughts that we believe about the thing, the person, or the event, if we believe them, they hurt us. If we don't believe them, not a problem, they can come and go. So thoughts are not a problem. But when you believe them and you put your power of attention into them, you bring them, it's as if they come to life in your experience. And we tend to put negative spins on things, people, or events. Why do we do that? Because we think we're a little being that's at risk. And so we're out there defending ourselves, watching out for trouble, and therefore creating it in our experience, not in our reality. There's a difference. You can perceive trouble where there isn't any. So the thing to do is to notice the thoughts that come with the fear, and notice that it's not the interview itself, the pending interview, which hasn't happened, but the thoughts about it, like, oh, what if I screw up? Oh, I hate these things. Whatever thought comes up, notice the thought and put your power of attention into the body. Feel your feet, the top of your head, take in your peripheral vision. Notice your breath moving in and moving out. And what happens when you do that? Let me know. If you're having trouble doing this, it's because you're contracting your power of attention from your foot to your head, and you're going bouncing all over the place trying to contract to do this. You have to open. You have to open and relax. Anybody else who's willing to do this, to experiment, to see what this is like in your experience, go right ahead. And also tell me what it's like when you feel your feet, the top of your head, take in your peripheral vision, and notice your breath moving in and moving out. Dissipates, yes, very good. Keep doing it and it will dissipate more and more and more. Some people say it gets quieter. Some people describe it as expansive. And what most people do when they start to feel fear is they don't open, they contract, they do the opposite. And that increases fear rather than dissipates it. So as you feel your feet, your head, take in your peripheral vision and notice your breath moving in and moving out, you might notice it's quiet. Why is that? What's absent? The stream of thinking, thoughts. They're absent or they are diminished. You've, in essence, pulled the plug on the stream of stressful thinking. You've taken the power away from thought, because you are the power. Thought has no power of its own. I call this coming to your senses. So if you're working with me and I say, okay, come to your senses, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Very good. Not thinking. Nice. Very good. And you can do this anytime leading up to the interview, during the interview. Don't be afraid of pausing for a moment. And when you first start to do this, you're not used to it. You're used to living in your head. And so some people say, well, like, I can't function like this. Yes, you can. You don't need thought to function. You need it to speak, but you don't need it to function. You don't need to think left, right, as you walk, right? You don't need it to, do the dishes. You don't have to think, go round, go round, go round. It's just that you've been practicing everything with the mind going and going and going, and you think that's where life is. You think that's where it's all at. Where thinking is just a teeny, weeny, itty bitty component of the totality of your experience. So take a moment. It just doesn't take long to come to your senses. And the more you practice it before the interview, even better. Just tell yourself, come to your senses. And there you are. And this is a 2-minute technique to inner peace. It's actually faster than 2 minutes. But if I said it was a 2-second technique to inner peace, nobody would believe me or come. So, so I call it a 2-minute technique. Another thing I'd like you to do, because what we're usually doing when we're in fear and anxiety is we're projecting into the future. Of course we're not, because we can't, because there's no such thing as the future. But we're projecting into the future with thought. And we usually project bad things. So what I'd like you to do just for a moment, and I rarely do this, but I do it for these kinds of incidences, I'd like you to think past the interview, the successful completion of the interview. Think past it. It's done, it's over, it's completed successfully. What does that do? And just look back on the successful completion of the interview. Are you able to do that? If you do this, as often as you can before the next 2 days when the interview happens, you'll switch your habit from projecting and worrying about it to just seeing the successful completion of it. Make it your new habit. It's kind of a band-aid. It's not the best. It's not the absolute, solution, but it'll get you through the next interview. That and coming to your senses during the interview. Okay, anybody else have any questions? I'm going to look at the board. Shifts my feelings. Good. Yes. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Nothing's happened. You haven't had the interview, but your feelings have shifted. And is this how you prefer to feel? I'm sure it is. It's much more beneficial, isn't it? It just works better. So you may as well do it. Why not? That's what I do when I hold private sessions with people. I show them how to shift their state, and it's not through that technique. It's through another technique. And when they do that, then everything changes. Their perspective changes, and they can even use it to free themselves. And you just asked me, why is it not a solution? I say it's a temporary Band-Aid. It's not a final solution, because the final solution is freedom from thought. We're using thought in this case. Freedom from thought, which means no matter what thought arises, there's no problem. And that is what I do in private sessions with people. I show them how to use the good state to free themselves so that fear just doesn't arise again. So something I can't demonstrate here in the short time that we have. But you might get more and more ideas of it if you hang around. And or you could also join the Inner Alcove, which is a membership site where I actually work with people one-on-one in doing this kind of thing. So I just wanted to give you something, though, that you could use for now for the upcoming interview, and I wish you luck with it. See, most people are pursuing what I call the happiness lie. The belief that things, people, or events make us happy or unhappy. And that's attachment. And what happened to me was the very fundamental, the second most fundamental attachment was broken the first time round. And that was I discovered this love and joy that was real and tangible and direct and absolute. Even though mine said, you can't be happy because A, B, C, D has happened. And I was like, but I am. And you know what? I prefer it. So I'm going to keep it. And so for the first time, I dismissed mind. Mind tells us how we should feel if we believe it. But you see, thoughts are not mandatory. Thoughts are options. It's your brain's job is to spew out thoughts. It spews out what they say, 40,000 a day, but we're not familiar. We don't even notice those. We may notice 3 or 4 repeating thoughts during the day, the ones that we are the most interested in, and therefore the ones which we get the most of. Because thoughts are like birds. If you feed the birds, they come. And if you keep feeding them, they keep coming. But if you stop feeding them, they stop coming. And that was my experience. I had this sudden joy and bliss and happiness and love, and I call it old mind. It would still arise, and it would go blah, 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, thank you very much. No, thank you. And this is what I would call dismissing them. Not being interested in them, pulling your power of attention back into the body, where it feels good, where it feels safe. And somebody asked me, do you feel happy even when your cat is sick? Sure. I have compassion for my cat in moments. You see, your experience is always changing. It's not like someone is sick and you have to be unhappy the whole day, 24/7, every minute. It's not how it goes. Unhappiness can only come and leave. It can't stay. It may appear to stay if you engage in suffering, which means you're putting your attention on a bad feeling thought like, okay, so you look at the cat and he's sick. And then you have a thought, the cat is sick. Those are 2 different things. And then the thought, oh, poor thing, right? Which feels worse. And then the thought might be even worse, I can't do anything for him. Oh, what if he dies? And it's getting worse and worse and worse. And he hasn't died. He's sitting here. He's sick. It's you suffering over an animal or a child or a friend being sick doesn't do them any good, right? And it may get in your way of actually being any use to them. So compassion is not a bad feeling. Compassion feels good. Compassion is the wish that others don't suffer. be that physical or mental or psychological. And it's love, actually. So when I see someone sick or hurting, compassion arises and love arises. It doesn't feel bad. We have some strange ideas in our society. We have strange ideas that if someone dies, for example, and you don't suffer X length of days or times or months or weeks or whatever, you didn't love them very much, you know. It's silly. I mean, if you think of, say, your mother or father who's passed, do you think they want you suffering? No. Would they prefer you holding love for them? Suffering is optional and unnecessary. Grief may come and go, move through, as it does, shock, that kind of thing. But it can pass in a reasonable time as long as suffering isn't engaged. Because now what's hurting is not the actual, it never is the actual thing. The fact that your cat is sick can't hurt you. Okay? It's always our thoughts about it. So suffering is optional. Pain, physical pain, is mandatory. It's just the body's message that there's something wrong and it needs attending. Okay, we'll come back to our live visitors. Anybody, question, comment, contribution? Welcome to yourself. So there's 3 powers. Actually, there's 5 powers you were born with. The first 3 are about all the time we have for here today. One is the power of awareness. It's a complete gift. You didn't do anything for it. You can't stop it. You can't turn it off. It's effortless. How much effort does it take to hear what you hear? Any? No. Just being aware of awareness is the value of that power. The second power is your power of attention, which I've demonstrated in a shortcut way today. You can feel your foot, you can feel your head separately, or you can open your power of attention. And the third is your power of interest. It's what are you most interested in? And you've seen it demonstrated already today. You know, when you were entertaining stressful thoughts about a job interview, what you were most interested in was what could go wrong. And that's going to feel bad. And then when I asked you to consider the successful completion of the job interview, your interest was in something completely different. Your interest was in something that feels good. And that's the experience you had. So it's sort of like you shine a flashlight on the wall and you say, you see that spot? I don't want to see that spot. Do you see that spot? I don't want to see that spot. You're saying you don't want to see that spot, but that's where you keep looking. If you really don't want to see that spot, look elsewhere. Look away. Be not interested. How do you be not interested? You devalue it. You notice that it's causing pain, that what you're putting your attention in, what you're interested in, is actually what's hurting you. It's actually what's hurting you. The thought is what's hurting you, not the content of the thought. The content of the thought is not the reality or the truth. For example, we can all agree that this is a mug, right? But is the word mug what we're pointing to? Is the word mug this, or is it just a word? You see, the map is not the territory. It's a pointer. It's not the actuality. Now, maps have little red lines, and if you went out to the city and you looked for a little red line in the road, well, you're not going to see any. And where we suffer is we confuse the thought for the reality, for the truth. For example, someone at work says you cut your hair. It's completely harmless. But some people hurt. Why do some people hurt? Because of the thought they have about that thought or statement, which is, oh, she doesn't like my hair. You know, I knew I shouldn't have gone to that hairdresser. She did an ugly job today. These hurt. And that is not what was said. So we have a question. When fear is experienced by virtue of, let's say, a tiger is attacking, is this ego or truth-driven? I.e., are there fears that are not driven by ego? Well, yeah, when you're being attacked by a tiger, the automatic response, of course, is going to be fear, and there is going to be anxiety. That's getting you ready. That's to protect you. That's to alert you. That's to get you out of harm's way. This is an automatic response. That is not the whole truth, I have to say. It is not the whole truth. Because I was once driving in freezing rain in a 2-lane road, and a car came from my right, spinning, and he spun in front of me like this. And the last thought that I heard was, you can't both lose control. Keep control. So I very gingerly started to gear down and brake, just keeping enough space so that I wouldn't get hit, but not braking so hard as I would lose control, which meant I stayed very close to this car as it spun in front of me. And after that thought shut down. No more thoughts. Zip, zero, zilch. It was the most utter stillness, utter peace. It was blissful. Even as the potential for this car to collide with mine was, I can't even say imminent. There's no such thing as imminent. It never happened, or we wouldn't be talking here today. But the danger was there. And then the car went into the other lane and spanned some more over there. And I kept watching. And then it came back and spun some more in front of me. And then it regained control and kept going. And then thought kicked in and I went, he kept going? How could he keep going? I could have been killed. And bang, up went the anxiety. When the heart pumped and I shook and I couldn't drive anymore. And I had to pull over. And I was thinking, the nerve, how could he? He could have killed me. La, la, la. I didn't even stop to turn. I've got to phone a friend and tell them I was nearly killed. What is nearly killed? It doesn't exist. There's no such thing. It's just a thought. But the body mind here is killed. And panic. You know, it's got to run from that tiger. And then I sat there thinking, I'm panicking now? And then I thought, well, I wouldn't have wanted to panic then. But the contrast was such an education, is that if even in that situation you don't have to panic, how much more do you not have to panic in any other situation? You know, but we allow ourselves. We have this idea, we think that it's the way it is. It's important. I can't do anything about it. Yada, yada, yada. And we just go off into a thought instead of look at a thought. And that's when awakening begins to happen, when you quit looking through and as a thought. You start looking at a thought. There's this distance between you and a thought. Hi, Bedri. Or Bedri? Have I pronounced it incorrectly? Which way? Thanks for joining us. So, ego creates most of your fear. You know, I wouldn't want to take away all your fear. There is a purpose, I suppose, somewhere along the line, but it's not mandatory. It's not mandatory. And if you explore this and experiment with this, you can have these type of aha moments that blow these ideas out of the water and free you, you know, for the ultimate freedom, for the ultimate truth. Probably the best use of fear is to drive the questions. And the questions need to come up. The questions need to be asked so that the ignorance can be removed, that the false knowledge can be removed, so that you can know truth. When you're facing the very last little bit of your false knowledge, of your very self, a lot of fear can arise. Because you might even think you're going to die. That's just a thought, of course. But because we've thought we were thoughts, that's actually true. The thing, though, is that you die every night. You as you think you are. You die every night. Every night you go to sleep, lights out, nobody home. The thinking machine stops. Not the actual you. Not the truth of who you are. But who in the waking state it appears that you are. You may have had the experience of just as you wake up in the morning, there's a gap that you know that you are, but you don't know what or who you are because thought has not kicked in. Yeah, you've had that experience, eh? Yeah. The first time I had this consciously, there was this automatic fear, anxiety, rush that came on. Oh my God, I don't know who I am. Oh my God, what's wrong with me? I have to know who I am. So I was kicking the program into gear. Okay, wait. Okay, name is Cindy. Cindy, yes. Today is what day is it? Oh my God, what day is it? Okay, yeah, Thursday. Okay. Oh yeah, this is what I have to do today. Oh yeah, here's my problems. Oh yeah, here's my and the whole heavy program came in, and that felt like relief. Oddly, only at first. Shortly after that, it felt worse and worse and worse as each problem came up. So you exist prior to the idea of who you are. All things happen prior to any thought about them. I was washing the floor one day and I pushed the bucket a little hard and the water sloshed up and all over the floor. And I'm looking at it, and I'm watching the water rush away. And then the thought comes up. There's water on the floor. I was like, thank you, peanut gallery. Like I didn't already know that. It was so dramatic, this gap between knowing and thought. Thought which is not knowing. A thought which is known. It's a known. So any thought about you is not you. It can't be you. It's just another known. Any thought, even the ugliest ones. And I've worked with people who have been depressed and suicidal all their lives. That these thoughts, in their words, were torturing them. But it's not true. They were torturing the thoughts. If you leave the thoughts alone, They dissipate. So be more interested in your actual direct experience, the body, the senses. You'll watch everything fall away. It doesn't mean you lose love or passion or motivation or anything. No, all of that goes on. All of that still happens. You're more free to do that. You're fearless. What is there to fear but a thought? And thoughts are nothing. Thoughts are like the moon. The moon has no light source of its own. It reflects the light of the sun. Without the sun, you wouldn't know there's a moon. You're the light of thoughts. It's good news. It's good news. And there'll come our time of reckoning. First, this knowledge has to hit home. And then an old pattern will arise, an old feeling, and you'll step into the thought and wear the thought as if it's you instead of looking at it. And you'll get angry or you'll get scared or whatever, and then there will come the thought, I don't like this. I don't like this. And that is a crack. That is an opportunity. When you realize you don't like this, you have an opportunity to stop. That was what happened to me. I just stopped. That was the first thing. And I'd been doing a lot of wanting, and wanting is very painful. A lot of wanting. And in the middle of that, I stopped just for a moment, and then I heard or knew you can give yourself whatever you want. Huh, really? It went back into the suffering. But then the thought, I don't like this, came up. And I hadn't missed that you can give yourself whatever you want. And so I contemplated that. If that's true, then it's not out there. Then I don't need what I think I need. Then it's in here. And what do I want was the next question. If that's true, what do I want? Very important, pivotal question. The answer was important, you see. This is why I'm so big on questions, because they elicit an answer, and not just a mental answer. As soon as I answered what I do want, I had it, I felt it, I experienced it, I shifted. And I went from pain to joy. And it blew the mind out. The mind said, this can't be. Yeah, well, it is. And I had suffered for so long, I wasn't ready to give up the joy this time. I prefer to deny mind. And so I stayed with the joy. I learned to stay with the joy. I had no words for it. Didn't know how, but I just learned to stay with the joy. I didn't know it had to do with power of attention and all of this, power of interest. And we have a comment that only my thoughts can hurt me. In the ultimate truth, not even your thoughts can hurt you. Only your thoughts can hurt your idea of you. Your idea of you is a thought. Only a thought can engage a thought. You're not a thought. You're right, wanting hurts because wanting is not having. That's sort of on a superficial level. Wanting hurts because you are not incomplete. It's not truth. It's false. You are absolutely complete. Perfect. And then we get the statement, I want the peace of God. We'll stop wanting it. There's no need to want it. Wanting hurts. Wanting is not having. You said it yourself. Are you outside of God? Somewhere, somehow? Is this possible? If you're not outside of God, then how can you be outside of the peace of God? You can only appear to be if you start wanting it. Because wanting it implies you don't have it. It implies I have something else. Drop it. It's just a thought. Don't put your interest in it. There's a difference between wanting the peace of God and knowing. So I would ask you, how does the peace of God feel? See the power of questions? How does the peace of God feel? Answer that with your whole body, mind, all your senses. Yes, you can corner yourself with that one. There's no way out. And you're the authority. That's one of your other powers. You're the authority in your life. Nobody else. And when you start to realize this, you start to find the door to freedom. I can ask you what the peace of God feels like. You don't have to answer that. You're absolutely full and complete. There is nothing you need here. And I think that the saying in the Bible, ask and you shall receive, it's not like you'll receive later. It's instantaneous because it's already here. You just have to look. Look the right way, don't look the other way. You feel acceptance? Absolutely. That's what the peace of God would include for sure. So give yourself whatever you want by looking for it. Don't give yourself what you don't want. It doesn't exist anyway. How can you give yourself what you don't want? Mind can do some contorted, funky things. But when you start to actually look at it, it all falls apart. There's no truth. If it hurts, I say, don't accept it, suspect it. And that's the opposite of what we've usually been doing. It hurts, and so we believe that it's true. You know, the thought that somebody insulted me hurts. So we really believe they insulted me. When you do the practice I call alchemy, you come to discover it never happened. It never happened. You insulted yourself. And I can say this as thought knowledge and you won't get it. It might sound like a neat idea, but until you actually do the shift, till you have the experience, the direct experience, then you go, and you see clearly how it is that you were hurting, why you were hurting, and how to stop doing it. And you release and stop judging the other person. And then you're both forgiven. Because it never happened. This is what the teaching in the Course in Miracles means. I encourage everybody to stop withholding from yourself. Nobody's doing it to you. That may at first feel like a bit of an affront, but it's actually the best news you could ever hear. Because it means you're not bound. You're not stuck. This is not hell. The one question that would be good to contemplate before the next call would be, who am I? Because you're not who you think you are. I hope this sinks into the heart. It happened for me. This was a disturbing thought to me. Wait a minute. I'm not who I think I am. What does that mean? And who do I think I am? Actually, there must be something or some who I think I am, if I'm being told I'm not who I think I am. So what is the thing that I think I am? This needs to be unveiled. It is a good question to contemplate anytime any kind of fear or anxiety or any problem arises. You can muck around in the realm of the problem and its mental thoughts and it'll go nowhere, because thought can morph and twist and turn and wrap around itself 40 million times. And it's all nothing. But if you go to the I in the thought, because everything hangs on the I in the thought, your sense of I, of who you think you are in the moment that you've got a problem. Who is this I? Who's got a problem? So I have the question, can who and what I am be put into words? No, never. In fact, you can never know, I shouldn't tell you this. You can never know who or what you are. You can only know who or what you're not. The eye can't see itself. The eye, physical eye. The knife can't cut itself. Anytime you would say, I am that thing, or I am this person, there's a subject and object. There's I saying that that thing over there is me. This is the split. How can you be an object in your awareness? Nothing you can point to can be you. Or would words, I'm getting the question, would words be a limitation of who I really am? Of course. Thoughts are pointers. They're like the map, but not the territory. They're the map, but not the territory. Is the map of the mountain the mountain? You can't actually ever be limited. Okay? It's impossible to limit you. But you can have the idea, the thought of limitation, and that will generate a feeling. But you're still not a feeling. So this body-mind can experience thoughts and feelings of limitation. It still doesn't touch you. It still doesn't touch you. But if you believe yourself to be a thought or a feeling or the body, you appear to limit yourself. It's not possible, though. Thank God. There is a way out. Any other final questions? I will keep going as long as there's questions. If there's not, I will wrap it up. Okay, very good. I suggest everybody continue practicing feeling in the senses and giving themselves what they want, seeking joy. Enjoy the joy just because you can. And I invite you next time. Thank you.